when some of the world's most influential and important people comment on anything, especially anything as serious as the war, we sometimes do special episodes for that. And of course, when one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people of 2023 comments on a regular basis, that is a good reason to dedicate an episode to somebody who, again, has been commenting since the start of the war, has very clearly taken the Hamas side, has said things that Hamas themselves would, I don't know if they would confirm. That's an ongoing problem, kind of with Western apologists for Hamas and supporters of Hamas and the Palestinians, where they make up what the position of Hamas is. But anyway, today we are talking about it's Bella Hadid, right? We're not talking about her sister. I don't know if we are going to be talking about her sister, but they're both very anti-Israel. Bella Hadid took it a step further last week or in recent days when she said that Hamas baked a birthday cake for a hostage, which you know is one of those attempts of the Hamas supporters in the West to say, look, they're actually really good guys. Those people who live stream themselves slaughtering people and taking hostages. Welcome to the Daily Objective. Jonathan, I know you're a huge fan of Bella Hadid, so I'm going to go to you first.
Yeah, well, it's what's frustrating, Razi, and great to be with you and Marco and Richard and all of our viewers from all around the world. I'm actually joining our broadcasts from OCON today, the Objectivist Conference in Anaheim, California. So we've got a really strong community and lots of fans here and all around the world. And unfortunately, probably still more fans of the Hadid sisters. And what's so frustrating is there's a famous photo of Liza Minnelli from the 1960s holding a copy of Ayn Rand's We the Living. And, that was, I think at the time, my sense is very popular. She was a young, popular starlet at the time, an influencer. And her walking around, I think, with We the Living, was a reflection of the time. That was a hot, popular, cool book to be involved with, to be reading back at that era. Now we've got the hot young starlets like Bella Hadid, as you pointed out, Razi. I mean, basically promoting Hamas conspiracy theorists. I mean, Bella Hadid basically promoted a theory that the Hamas hostages are better taken care of, better treated than Palestinian detainees in Israel. Now, there was a report that said these hostages were eating about 1/10 of the required minimum daily nutrition. They were being starved to death. Maybe they didn't necessarily look like it, skinny enough for Bella Hadid, but they were malnourished. They were psychologically and physically abused. But Bella Hadid, who's influential, I mean, I don't know how many millions of Instagram followers, etc., but she's out there parroting Hamas propaganda but flouting her stupid, ugly keffiyeh dress. And, it's a shame because it goes a long way with influencing exactly the young minds who are susceptible to this sort of trash.
Yeah, I mean, even the very comparison of the treatment of civilians who are plucked from their lives, the treatment of them by terrorists, the comparison of that to terrorist detainees in Israel. I mean, they deserve to be detained and they deserve,
Right.
not to have the comfort that they enjoy there, whereas the civilians taken by Hamas deserve to live and be free. Marco, Richard, both of you have expressed strong objection to what Hamas has been doing. Has Bella Hadid changed your mind in any way?
Yeah, of course. I'm sold now. I'm gonna start wearing terrorist kitchen towels and go around killing people. I mean, this woman is she personified the saying just a pretty face, really. Behind those eyes, there's really nothing apart from pure evil. She's done this a number of times, and what she's doing every time she equates the victims of Hamas to criminals that are held in Palestine in Israeli jails where they belong, frankly. She made a point that the Almog May Jan, one of the people rescued on last Saturday, I think, from the so-called refugee camp in Nusrat. I mean, we may have read the point that there's nothing about refugee camps. It's a proper middle Gaza residential quarter with brick houses and all sorts of that. So don't let assume that refugee means anything anymore in Gaza. But she's actually she was making the point that, oh, look, the Hamas people are actually very nice. They baked the cake for his birthday. When the actual truth was that they baked the cake, but just to mock him. At the same time, they were torturing him psychologically. You know, a number of times they told him they were going to kill him. During a heat wave, was under a bunch of blankets just to make him suffer as much as they could. So these people are nowhere near decent, nowhere near human, and the people that support them are probably even worse because they make the choice. They could know better. They have the information, but they still choose to push this propaganda. And at the same time, they don't even think. You know, one day they tell you there's starvation in Gaza. The next day they tell you they're baking cakes. It's like, which one is it?
I don't know what it is about top models who always look like they've just swallowed a lemon. But I mean, in this case, she's definitely swallowed the lemon of Hamas propaganda. And worse than that, she's an agent of promoting it. And that's just despicable, really. I mean, what other things does she do normally on her birthday? Does she normally be psychologically tortured? Is she normally told she's about to die and no one cares for her and she could be shot any moment? Because that's what happened to the hostage on his birthday and in the months and months that he was in captivity. So to just take a perceptual image of somebody with a cake that is actually a Hamas propaganda video, as Marco said, designed to mock him and again form part of that psychological torture. Well, you really are evil to do that, aren't you? And you're really trying to drop the context to evade the truth. Simply to whitewash the situation in favor of what you've already pre-decided is the case, when it clearly, and the GoPro evidence is evidence enough of that, of what happened on October the 7th. You know, how can you possibly take that kind of stance? But what's terrible about it is, of course, the tens of millions of followers on Instagram, the influence that she inevitably has, as people treat a model as an ideal, treat a model as an ideal of beauty, and then make the assumption, therefore, that it's also an ideal of mind, which it isn't necessarily. It can be, if that mind is demonstrating sensible thinking that's rational, but obviously in this case, it's the absolute opposite.
And she's exactly the one who would have been at the Nova Music Festival with her fabulous friends, dancing and partying and having fun, and they would have been the first ones butchered by Hamas invaders coming in on their little paragliders, shooting everyone in sight, literally dismembering the bodies in the process and dragging them through the streets of Gaza like a freaking fucking prize. You know, they would be, of course, the first victims. And I have to say, I don't hold them responsible for their father, but their father is I guess a big real estate developer in America. He's gone bankrupt 5 times, and just in the last couple of weeks, he's had to apologize for these racist and homophobic messages that he sent to a U.S. Elected representative, a U.S. congressman, I believe. So, you know, I agree with you. You know, there's something really ugly about the ideology from her sister. And, you know, they donated, I believe, $1 million to Palestinian aid, So they got their altruism points, right? I mean, they got their little social justice credential warriors for being on the side of the good. And all of their Instagram posts, as you said, are, you know, depicting Israel as the monster when just the opposite is true.
Yeah, you know, we hear about how the Palestinians are suffering, and you know, it's innocent civilians, and it's, you know, just a civilian population that is suffering at the hands of Israel. Nobody mentions why this war is going on. And of course, one of the things about, and I believe this is one of the hostages that was held by the doctor and his journalist son, right? So yeah, the you know, the innocent civilians that the Hadids are supposedly worried about are not innocent. They are a part of the problem here, and the truly innocent ones are you know, being being attacked or being used in the propaganda. And Jonathan, you mentioned their father. Their father was born in Israel, and considers himself a Palestinian. I guess by his and probably the UN's definition, the specific definition for Palestinian refugee, which is different from the actual definition of refugee. The Hadid sisters are also Palestinian refugees and also would like to come back to a country they have never been to because they were both born in the U.S. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's something like kind of a tribal, there's like a tribalist glorification here. Like if they're so, I mean, if they're so enamored with the Palestinian society, I don't know. Obviously, they don't live there. I didn't know that, Razi. They weren't born there. But what would be more interesting to me, I think more authentic, is to speak out against necessarily that society. Just because your grandparents were born there doesn't mean that you have to defend what's a pretty rotten culture. A culture, I mean, look how it treats any sort of minorities. It's an Islamo-fascist totalitarian culture. Throws gays off of buildings. I mean, for months and months, we've been, highlighting just how wonderful the Palestinian culture is. And why does she feel the need to defend that? I mean, what is there to defend in anything that the Palestinians have done in the last 6 months, in the last decade? What exactly is she defending?
Yeah, and she does choose to live in the exact opposite, which is American culture. Yeah, Marco.
Yeah, exactly. She's effectively using the freedom she's accustomed to, the freedom which has been earned by centuries of progress, and she's using it to push a culture which effectively would demand her to wear a burqa, not to be seen naked, not to even be seen in public because she would be a slave. Women's rights are not exactly a thing in Gaza and Islamic cultures. But what Jonathan was mentioning earlier on, this kind of mindless altruism that these people seem to I want to say fall victim, but they don't fall victim. They choose to follow. Is this assumption that the weak, the unable, the unwilling is the good, and if you are strong and self-confident, you're the bad one, which is exactly out of our tits really, because we all know that in order to be happy, you have to achieve your values, and only the proud, only the person who puts lots of effort in it will be able to be to look back and say, wow, I did this by myself. I'm so proud. And that's how I be a happy person. These people go from charity ball to charity ball. She even, the ultimate sacrifice, she auctioned her Prada bag in order to raise fund for some weird charity. And probably a bag she got for free anyway, because she got a new one in the first place. But that's how they see the world. Every time you do a deed, make sure somebody sees it, because you have to be appointed like as a good person. You do the deed and make sure the PR follows. If you look on Wikipedia, there isn't a piece of charity she's done, money she's given to somebody, which has not been publicly recorded and celebrated.
Yeah, that second-handed nature of it all, where it's the glory of being seen for what you're doing, rather than actually doing it for your own purposes, your own selfish values. I think one of the things that strikes me in this is when it comes to this cake post of hers, what she's trying to do here, she's trying to whitewash the evil. She's trying to say that there's a little bit of good in every evil person. And that leads you to think there's evil in every good person, as Ayn Rand pointed out. And therefore, eventually that leads you, as she also pointed out, to resenting the good in anyone. And ultimately, that's where this kind of morality leads. So you shouldn't get sucked in by the altruism of it, because that's the absolute, worst kind of morality. That's a warped morality that leads people to sacrifice for their enemy, etc. Whereas here, what she's really trying to do is whitewash the enemy, make the evil person look like they're humble or good or considerate, when clearly taking a hostage, holding them for months, is the absolute opposite. And
right, like taking young, this last, what was it, 2 weeks, we saw the young woman Noah, who was released. Now her boyfriend, I think, is still being held, probably dead at this point. God knows how many times he's been beat up or starved or whatnot. But like, if these young women, the Hadid sisters, like, if they actually cared about women's rights, individual rights, but like young women, the plight of young women. I mean, Israel is not going out there and shooting and mowing down young women. They're not snatching young Palestinian women off the street, beating them up and holding them in caves in the ground. But that's what Hamas is doing. And as you said, gents, I mean, that's what the Hadid sisters are whitewashing, enabling, sanctioning. They're on the side of like the ugliest, most Islamo-fascist evil present today. And like, that's who they want to get in bed with. Oh, and they're doing it, of course, from their Instagram account in Beverly Hills, as you said, from one charity auction to the next. Like, there's that old saying of like, vote with your feet. If it sounds a little like yokelish, but if Palestine is so great, why don't you start just by going there? Forget the $1 million. Like, start going live there for. Tell us how wonderful of a life you're necessarily having there. How wonderful the culture is that you want to be a part of and enable and grow. Because from our eyes, I think from Western eyes, certainly, it's ass backward. And as Ayn Rand said on the Donahue show 50 years ago, savage. Still looks pretty savage to me.
Yeah, by the way, just on them living in Beverly Hills and having Prada, I don't know if first of all that is no excuse. Also, do we know if they really had it that easy? Did they have Sky growing up? That's an inside joke for people following British politics, and not as well delivered. I'm kind of haven't been on the show for a while. Anyway, thank you for the super chat. Iron Meerkat says Gaza de Lenda Est. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Thank you, Crusader General, who says Gaza de Lenda Est ut humanitas salvator. Thank you guys for making me read Latin and not knowing what I'm reading. But Marco, is that do you want to tell me what that means?
Gaza should be destroyed, and what was the other bit?
Ut humanitas salvator.
Save humanity. Yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you for that. Thank you, Ari Wasserman, for the super chat. He says, fugly models for Palestine.
Right, like right with the fatty queers for Palestine, like more like insignificant groups that if they really cared about the minority, they would care about any minority, they'd care about individuals, which Gaza doesn't want all. I just go back to it, like, could you carve up a human body, even if they presented Adolf Hitler to you on a plate? They said, do what you want with him. Could you actually physically carve up a human body? I know I couldn't. I don't know a lot of human beings who could. These Hamas butchers did it with abandon, did it with glee. And that's who the Hadid sisters, with all their Prada and all their Louboutin, are endorsing and sanctioning.
Yeah, I mean, so look, I mean, first of all, I don't agree about their looks. They're not bad looking. And, they're making a living off their looks. There is always the question of, why are we listening to somebody like this on any topic whatsoever? But look, she gained her audience, in a perfectly legitimate way. And as I think it was you, Richard, who mentioned the scary thing is the fact that she has all this following, the fact that something like this doesn't lose you following. Whereas, if you think about the things that people have been canceled over, in like bad jokes that may have offended someone, as opposed to full on overtime, unapologetically supporting the worst society in the world, and at the time when they're showing their culture in a clearer way than ever before, and their savagery, this apparently will not lose you any popularity, and yeah, again, that's also why we're talking about someone like her, because I don't know if Time Magazine is necessarily accurate in considering her one of the 100 most influential people in the world, but she is influential, and she's using that influence for the worst kind of evil that there is.
Well,
Yeah,
and I'll just say it's so great about people like Mark Pellegrino and a few others who not only even just forget, highlighting Rand, but again, I go back to that photo of Liza Minnelli from the '60s. Like people who are able to introduce and turn on other young people, influence other young people to truly radical ideas. I mean, the Hadid sisters, none of this is radical, and even their kafia. Yasser Arafat wore it a lot better than they do. It's not cool. It's not hip. It's the same old, tired, collectivist, racist BS. And if they wanted something radical, they'd turn to individualism and Rand. But they don't. They go just the other way.
Yeah. And it's very much typical of today's culture, isn't it? Somebody who looks good, not because of something she's done, but she's lucky enough to be born good looking. And she's got an heritage which she can use to claim a refugee status forever for her and their descendants, which is ultimately the latest fashion accessory. Imagine how much mileage she makes out of it. But the point that these characteristics are not her choice. She's living of unearned prestige, and she's effectively justifying her choice on the basis of this. And that's the thing that makes it particularly repellent. That's why if you choose to follow a person like this, then you're accomplice to the stupid things she says and the evil stuff she does. So, if I were you, unfollow the woman. If I were her, start looking at yourself and start making the choices based on rationality, based on,
And her history, I don't mean to interrupt you, but like the fact that she is of this, like I look at the ultra Orthodox or ultra religious Jews and say, batshit crazy, avoid at all costs, denounce and renounce everything they stand for, even though you could say, well, you were raised Jewish, so it's like it's okay to put down something that's in your history if it's bad, if it's corrupt, if it's immoral, even if a couple generations past. But you get the sense that they feel a sense to have to honor it and maybe wear it as a badge, because in today's culture, the Palestinians are the good guys. And mean old Israel, and they're at it again. I'm sorry, Raz, I didn't interrupt.
That was Marco.
No, I mean, you looked like you were getting ready to roll.
No, well, I have something to say, but Marco, did you want to wrap up or
no, I'm
Richard?
good, thank you.
Richard.
Well, I was just going to say that obviously social media has made this even more of a celebrity age than any previous age, and it's made the reach of celebrities so large. But it is the onus is on each person to think for themselves, isn't it? And simply to blindly follow and repeat, to parrot without any critical thinking is really the core of the problem here, because there's no excuse. And if you tweet something out to tens of millions of people and you get thumbs up or they don't unfollow you, then that acts as an endorsement of that. But it doesn't make them right. It doesn't make the truth different to what it is, no matter how many tens of millions of people are singing from the same song sheet on a particular subject. The truth is based on reality. The truth is based on the evidence that we can see from Gaza, from the ideology that inspires Hamas, and from every day of this conflict. Even if we just focus on that, it's clear. So reality is what counts, not what tens of millions of people think in any situation. So you've got to think for yourself.
Yeah. Ari follows up on his super chat saying she's not good looking, and then saying both Hadids are physiologically repulsive, and that's only on the outside. We'll agree to disagree on the outside. I absolutely agree she's repulsive on the inside. But yeah, it kind of I want to. You guys did an episode on Brianna Joy Gray a few days ago or whenever it was, and she did this. We're talking about this whitewashing of Hamas to the point that she said something like what Hamas really wants, or they don't want to kill the Jews, they want a country like the United States of America. And that's the common thing there, I think, among the Western supporters of the Palestinians is that they don't care about the Palestinians. They care about hating Israel, and nothing shows it clearer than the way they talk about what the Palestinians want, which is in complete contradiction to what the Palestinians say themselves, whether it's officially Hamas's spokespeople. The Western media loves to quote Hamas when it comes to death tolls, but they don't quote Hamas when it comes to what they want to achieve in their actions against Israel. And they don't quote the Palestinian people. They don't talk about what Palestinians want. Nobody among the Palestinians, certainly nobody prominent, no leader, not of Hamas, not of any other organization, would ever say anything positive about wanting to be like the United States of America. They want to be like Iran or like Syria, one or the other. One type of dictatorship or which type of dictatorship is the internal disagreement among the Palestinians. There are no voices for freedom, which of course makes the popular chant from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, so ironic. And yeah, look, I think we will continue to talk about these influencers here who lie about who they are supporting and lie about the fact that they are actually supporting anybody, because what they want is to see Israelis dead, and that is the extent to which they support the Palestinians. Thank you, Iron Meerkat, for the super chat. Iron Meerkat says at least Kanye had to work for his rap career. The Hadids merely got lucky with their genes. P.S. Gaza delenda est. Thank you for that. Any final thoughts, Jonathan?
Well, there's that tape out in these last couple of weeks with the young Hamas operative they captured who bragged about raping a hostage, his father and his uncle. Then they shot the hostage. That's who the Hadid sisters are supporting. That's who they're endorsing. Go and read some of Ayn Rand on United Nations, on the Middle East. Watch her Donahue interview, and check out my book, Can You Really Love a Dog?, which is on a much more benevolent, uplifting, and positive topic writ large.
Yeah, Marco.
Every time somebody support Palestine or wants to raise funds to Palestine, they're actually raising funds for somebody to have the right to destroy the rights of somebody in the Middle East. Israel, we've seen from the victims of October 7, people from all over the world live in Israel. Thai people, Russians, Brits, Americans, Jewish, Arabs, they all live in peace in Israel. But the pro-Palestinians want this to end, and they want to replace Israel with an Islamic dictatorship. So you don't give them the right to infringe somebody else's right.
Yeah, and don't allow people to get away with the moral equivalence, which she's clearly doing in this case, trying to equate prisoners in Israel who've committed crimes with hostage taking from Hamas's side. Because what you're trying to do there, you're trying to say both have a loss of freedom, but you're dropping the cause and effect from it. You're like starting the film partway through and ignoring all the violence that took place beforehand, and of course all the actions of the people that end up in prison in Israel is because of their violence, their anti-Semitism, and the fact that they attack Israel in one form or another. So all of that is relevant. Whereas here, you're talking about somebody being at a music festival, somebody who was about to start a tech job the following day, and was going to the Nova Music Festival to celebrate it, and is suddenly extracted from that and abducted and taken away and stored in a dark room for months on end. And you try and moralize that and tell us it's a good thing, or at least it's justifiable. Sorry. Not a bit of it.
Yeah, just another point, Jonathan. You mentioned earlier about Noah Argamani's boyfriend. We don't actually. There are hostages people who were taken who have been confirmed dead. He's not among those, so there's very much a chance that he is still alive. Ari follows up with, "I'm afraid we'll have to agree to disagree concerning Razi's taste in women." That's not my taste in women. I just don't agree that they're ugly. But yeah, look, there is beyond looks. There's more, and in their case, I kind of wish there was less. So yeah, we'll. But in any case, I would not advocate for them. I would advocate for people who appreciate whatever they appreciate about their work, consider the type of human beings you have to be to support Hamas, and to the extent that you make up lies for them. Unfortunately, they're not alone. There are many others, which, the only positive about that is it makes it easier for us to come up with topics for shows, but we'd like our job to be more difficult in that respect. Yeah, there is no reality show extra today because many of us are here at the Objectivist Summer Conference, but there is a daily objective tomorrow. There is the reality show tomorrow. We hope you'll join us for that. Thank you, Marco, Richard, and Jonathan, who has already left for the next lecture at the conference. I will make my way there as well. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Bye.